Batman Begins.
I love Batman Begins. I love Nolan's trilogy, but
What has Nolan made that you don't like?
Nothing. I mean, I've only seen Insomnia once, but I even recall that being pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But this Batman Begins, I've told you, I go back and forth between whether or not I like this one or The Dark Knight better.
See, now I don't. Of which one I like better, I just personally,
Right.
It's hands down for me, The Dark Knight's the best of the trilogy. That being said, the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, and Dark Knight Rises gets a bad rap, but to me, I have
comparatively speaking, it's nowhere near as good as Batman Begins and
see, I personally disagree.
Okay.
I have like The Dark Knight and then these two like right underneath it, and then almost all other superhero movies after that.
See, I mean, we can talk about it when we discuss The Dark Knight Rises, but yeah, I put Dark Knight Rises.
I felt that way originally, but after like the second or third time,
I might rewatch Dark Knight Rises again, and something may click. But I've seen it numerous times, and it just never did. But this movie actually holds kind of a strange, kind of nice place in my heart, because I remember we went to go see this at Nana and Pop's, and it was just me and you, and I remember having no expectation. I was like, oh, it's a Batman movie, you know, and
coming off of Schumacher's Batmans.
Yeah, so
this was just kind of like, all right, we're gonna go see Batman.
So,
and then it was really good.
It was really good, and it was so different. Like, I was expecting your normal kind of popcorn, entertaining, kind of ridiculous.
This is the first time you've got that realism.
Oh, it was. But what I got was this dark, gritty, realistic superhero movie, and I was like, "What is what?" It just blew my mind. And something else that I was kind of thinking about when we were rewatching it yesterday, something I really appreciated about this movie, specifically because it's an origin movie, is when you think of Batman villains, you think of like the Joker or the Riddler or the Penguin, you know, like all the quote-unquote iconic villains, right? And those are the ones that had already been used with Burton and Schumacher.
And while you heard of Ra's al Ghul, and
I was like 12 when I first saw it. I had no idea who Ra's al Ghul was. I had no idea who Scarecrow was.
Yeah, see,
these were villains that I saw, and I was like, these are like.
Yeah, I mean, I knew who both were, but they are. They're lesser of, when you think Batman villains, that's not probably in the first 4 or 5 names you're going to list off. But you're right. This was just
it was
refreshing. It was a refreshing
exactly.
take.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I had never seen or watched a Batman. I never knew about his origins other than his parents being shot. Mm-hmm. But I'm assuming it's this way in the comics.
Trained with Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, like training with the League of Shadows, and that whole thing was just. It was such a good origin movie, and you really kind of get into the mind of why Bruce Wayne is the way he is, and it just set off this trilogy so well.
Yeah. And
man, I watched it last night, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I put this right there with The Dark Knight.
Oh, it's really good. It's really good. Something that we should probably mention, Katie Holmes did get nominated for a Razzie.
She did, which I think is it's a bit unfair. But what you do realize when you do watch The Dark Knight is like, oh, Maggie Gyllenhaal is just a much better actress. Katie Holmes, you could argue, is better looking, you know, but no. I mean, you realize like, oh.
I never thought Katie Holmes was bad, and I don't necessarily think Katie Holmes is a horrible actress.
No.
I just thought, especially at this point in her career, it probably wasn't the best casting.
No, but then see that Nolan has done this, except for Dark Knight Rises, but in both The Dark Knight and in Batman Begins, he casts people that people questioned. Mm-hmm. So like when Batman Begins was starting up, I remember Josh Hartnett was one of the people that was being rumored, and he was really kind of widely known. Where Christian Bale his most famous movie up until that point was American Psycho.
And being the kid from...
he was like a kid actor. He was in Empire of the Sun and like Newsies and stuff. So when he was cast as this, people were like, I mean, he's a good actor, but can he play Bruce Wayne or can he play Batman? And within 20 minutes, you're like, no, he's good.
Yeah.
Christian Bale's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I wouldn't say jump-started, but it really brought Christian Bale to the average moviegoers.
Brought Nolan to the average moviegoer.
Well, but that brings up another good topic, is how this was the...
I mean, I knew what Insomnia was, and I had never...
But did you...
But I had never seen Insomnia. I knew what Memento was, but I never... I saw Memento, I would guess, within a couple months of seeing Batman Begins.
Interesting.
So I saw Memento for the first time. Mainly because I saw Batman Begins, and I was like...
I want to see what else this guy does. But my point is, this was really kind of the first case of taking, like, all his movies up until that point were really kind of small. And Warner Brothers took a chance with, like, let's bring this semi-indie director.
Yeah.
And he apparently...
blew him away.
Well, yeah, they said what he did was that they sat down with him and he, like, laid it out beat by beat how the movie was going to go. Bailey, do I taste good? What's going on? He laid it out beat by beat how the movie was going to go, and they were like, immediately like, okay, yeah, go for it. And I think that right there, having the studio being like, no, he knows what he's doing, and kind of let him do that, it created what is the best origin superhero movie there is. I mean, there are
other ones. There are other ones you can mention.
Mm-hmm.
The first Iron Man is fantastic. Guardians of the Galaxy is really good. Because the first Spider-Man,
Sam Raimi's
Spider-Man, which is good. It was also the first like origin movie period. Like up until that point, that was kind of the first time you'd seen somebody
correct.
Just like
because up until that point, the really established superhero movie was Burton's Batman, and even then it just kind of brought you straight into him being Batman.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are other good first introductions to superheroes, like Black Panther.
Right.
That's a great, but at that point when you're introduced to him, you've already seen
him and met him.
Yeah.
See, but that also what the movies that you brought up that are in common is that not only were they good movies, they also set the tone for what the following movies would be. Mm-hmm. And Iron Man did it for like the whole kind of Avengers. Guardians, it was clearly James Gunn brought something kind of fresh to it.
Yeah.
And Nolan brought this dark, gritty, realistic type of movie, and people immediately were like, okay, I know what he's doing now. And I'm assuming a lot of Batman fans were like, this is how Batman should be.
Yeah, and that's like those other origin movies. I mean, they really nailed what that character was supposed to be. Like, he's human. It's supposed to be realistic.
Yeah.
The villains are psychotic, but they're not human.
No.
Like, they're not. It's not a cartoon world.
You could. You're right. You're absolutely right. Except Scarecrow is a bit psychotic, but Ra's al Ghul kind of had that Thanos.
Well, I just meant overall.
That's true.
I didn't mean in this movie in particular.
They're not.
I'm talking about the world.
They're not cartoon. You're right. They're not cartoonish type characters.
Yeah. The world you're introduced to with this movie. I'm talking about all the villains in general.
Yeah, I mean that is true. It is very true. But yeah, I this one is it's a special movie for me. I just love this movie. This one also, I would argue, has a little more humor than the rest of them, which in a way almost makes it a little easier to watch. It
is definitely easier to watch. Like, if it's of the three Nolan Batmans, it's probably the one you can just like throw on and pick up at any moment and kind of watch it. But the Dark Knight has famous scenes, and you can sit there, but it's I don't want to say deep, but it's a more draining movie to watch than Batman Begins.
You're absolutely right, man. but Batman Begins, I would definitely give it an A.
It's.
I don't know if I want to say A plus because that insinuates that it's perfect, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are little things here and there that are. They're more ticky-tack stuff where it's like, oh well, that could have been done a little bit. Such as like Katie Holmes' acting, and Nolan throughout these movies kind of does have. It's certain lines that are like, well, that was a little cheesy, but it's nothing that brings down the movie at all.
But it's funny that the lines that are cheesy were almost like they stand out because of how like
the rest of it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. And then there's like random cheesy lines.
Whoa, that's kind of.
And there's a handful like you should see my other car, and then the whole scene where it's on top of the roofs. Like there's a couple times where the guys say stuff, and you're like,
well, it's yeah, it is.
But the point being, like you said, there are some cheesier moments. It was almost he was trying to be more lighthearted, where you get into the Dark Knight.
Well, I think
the comic relief is actually the Joker.
What is that dark sense of humor? This movie though is great. I think all performances across the board, excluding kind of Katie Holmes, like Cillian Murphy. We were watching last night, and I was like, man, Cillian Murphy's always good, and it helps that like
Gary Oldman.
You have Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. You have
Michael Caine.
Well, Michael Caine's always
Morgan Freeman.
No, it's for me. It was the one that I totally forgot about was Tom Wilkinson as Falcone.
Yeah,
and it's like that's a great actor that was for a very small part. And Nolan.
Oh, and then what's his name? Who's like the head of the board? The guy that
head of the. Oh, Rutger Hauer.
Rutger Hauer was really good.
Yeah, I mean Nolan does that too throughout his movies, where he'll get people that haven't really been in a big name movie in a while. And then he'll be like, no, you are a good actor. And he'll get them for like these small parts. And Rutger Hauer is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, he probably wasn't doing anything big up until that point. And I'm sure Nolan had seen him in like Blade Runner or seen him in some of his older movies or The Hitcher or something. And he was like, no, you're a good actor. And I think you'd be great in this little specific role. And he was great.
Yeah.
And that's why like, it really comes down to like Nolan's just the fucking man. Christopher Nolan's amazing, and
that's enough. That's enough rating on that.
I know.
We've got 2 more of these to review.
That's true. That is true.
So, I think that's pretty much all we have to say about this. It's really good. We both give it A's, and we're gonna catch you next time with our take
of The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight.
We'll see you.